Hi, welcome to Film Music Mentor, and join me for part two of How to Avoid a Lawsuit with entertainment attorney Daniel Sirkin.
Just want to remind everybody that the information provided here is for general guidance only. Nothing in this video constitutes attorney-client privilege. If you do have a specific legal question or issue, go seek out a lawyer. One other thing that I think you brought up earlier that we forgot to touch on is public performance rights
Performance rights.
and royalties. In most cases, if you're making a television production or film production, as a producer, you're not going to have to worry about paying the performance royalties because the exhibitor, for example, of a television show, is going to be paying those royalties. On the composer side, if you're the music composer, you want to make sure you're getting those royalties paid for you. But as the producer, as long as you know that the exhibitor, the distributor, is going to be covering those royalties, you don't have to worry about them. But in your contract, for your Netflix streaming of your movie, you should be making clear in there that performance royalties obligation is on the distributor exhibitor.
Right, and so what the producer does is they create a cue sheet, which is a list of every piece of music used in the production, how it's used, how long it's used, if it's a piece of vocal music, instrumental music, if it's featured, if you see someone singing it, or if it's in the background. You have a list of every piece of music that goes on this cue sheet. The cue sheet has the names of the composer and the publisher, and these get distributed to ASCAP, American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, or BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated. They are performing rights organizations, and they distribute royalties to composers and publishers. There's also similar companies all around the world. And so I'm often asked the question, with these royalties, how much do I have to pay? It's not the producer, it's the distributor. So if it's on Netflix, Netflix pays BMI, pays ASCAP. NBC pays BMI, pays ASCAP. Or CBS or Discovery or whatever channel it is. So it's not something that you need to worry about paying. It's something you need to worry about listing in your show Bible or your film Bible.
And again, making clear that obligation is at the end of the day on the Netflix or the Discovery or that exhibitor.
Yeah, and they're pretty careful. They're not looking to
It's absolutely, that's the standard and the custom for it to be that way.
Right. We were talking about some of the misconceptions about music rights for film.
Yeah. I think a couple other kind of pretty simple ones are that a lot of people think that if you credit or give an attribution to the creator of a piece of music, that somehow that means you have the ability to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, that's absolutely not the case.
No,
people love getting credit for things, but they also love getting paid for things. And
yeah,
and under the law, you have to pay them in order to use their work
or get their express permission.
Exactly, get their express permission. That leads you to another point, which is a lot of times, in the creative and arts community, people are relying or working with friends or people they feel like they trust, and they get an oral okay, or have the impression that it's okay to use someone's work. But at the end of the day, you got to get it in writing. A contract or at least a clear email of the terms to make sure that you have a clear express permission to use any work.
Yeah, or a deal memo, which is just sort of a shortened form. And correct me if I'm wrong, you don't need all kinds of legalese if you're working with your friends, but be clear.
Yes, I think be clear, that. As Andrew says, a deal memo or even just an email that sets forth the work that you're using. The scope of the use in terms of what media. In the case of a producer, you guys are obviously going to want to use the work in all media, or the ability to do so. You're going to want it to be able to use it in perpetuity, worldwide. Sometimes the licensee, the licensor, the person who is providing you with the music, if it is in a license situation, we'll try to limit some of those. Let me limit the amount of time the license is for, or limit the amount of the type of media you can use it in, if the price isn't right for them. So the main terms that you're going to want to have in there are, again, the scope of the use of the license, the term, territory, and any fee, obviously.
Right. One thing I do a lot with clients, people automatically assume that they want to own the rights to the music. and it's not always in the best interest for the producer because it's more money for them. And I'll make an arrangement where they have all the rights they need to put it in festivals, to sell it, to distribute it all over the world in perpetuity, but I hold on to the rights because I can make money in the future in different ways where they really can't. They don't have the structure set up to, for instance, they may not have a publishing entity. NBC, CBS, Discovery, they all have these big publishing entities, so they want to own the music. But for most producers, they don't. So to own the music and to pay extra isn't really worth their while.
And a lot of times the question as a producer is, how much do you care about exclusivity over this music?
Right.
If this music is so important to you and you really feel like it can't be used anywhere else but your film, then there's a discussion over either having an exclusive license or to owning the work. But
Mm-hmm.
as Andrew says, if you're okay with that music being exploited in other ways and other fashions, then you can probably get a much better deal
Mm-hmm.
just by gaining the rights that you need for your film.
Yeah, I've even had the the situation where I I would wait a certain amount of time before I use the music in other situations. So that's another thing. But I mean, I
Yeah, absolutely. You can
find
do it's called
yeah
a holdback clause,
a whole back. I
uh,
didn't know that.
and they then you have an agreement that they can't use the music for 3, 5, 7, let's say years,
Hmm.
or they can't use it in also similar types of productions.
Right. And so you decide what's the most important thing for you for your particular needs. Generally, I think people don't really need exclusivity. If it's if it's a theme to a show or something like that, there could even be some cachet and a little pride and a little badge for it being used in other ways, which just kind of markets your product as well.
One other interesting note is that a lot of times if you're negotiating for a sync license and or a master use license, if you're looking to use the song for 5 seconds or
Mhm.
for 2 minutes, it's generally going to be the same cost.
Right.
Usually, the term, the scope, and the type of media is going to impact the price more than the length of the cue that you're using.
Yeah, and the thing I think a lot of people don't think about is the bigger the commercial audience, the more the budget is going to be. So if you are doing a show for Discovery, you're not going to have as much music. I'm sorry, you're not going to have as much money to license a piece of music than if you were doing it on NBC or CBS or Fox or something like that. Um, and if you're doing an independent film, like Daniel said before, you'll probably be at the end of the list. Sometimes people get a license for festivals. They're usually pretty cheap, but what I found is that can backfire because you go to a festival, someone's interested in the film, and one of the first questions, do you have the rights to all the music? And you say yes because you have a festival license, but you really don't. And then the music publisher or label has you up against a wall.
That's right. You have to be very careful with the festival only licenses for just that reason. While it's going to be cheap in the short term, thinking long term, um, the as you said, the publisher is going to knows now that there's a real need for it, and so the cost of that music for a full license
Yeah.
is gonna go up.
Yeah, I think that there's this I don't know, a fantasy, a misconception that someone's going to see my amazing film and they're going to pay for all of these mistakes that I made. They're going to buy all the music licenses. They're going to buy all the footage that I didn't pay for because my work is so great. And I think that that's probably doesn't happen too much. The opposite does.
I think that in both music and that I think that applies to any other type of clearance, whether it's appearance releases with your talent
Mhm.
or location agreements, or all your clearances. Um, the more buttoned up you are up front, the better chance your film
Yeah.
has the opportunity to see the light of day.
Yeah. You don't want to you put so much work into it. You don't want to get caught up in these legal battles. And remember, if someone's paying for these licenses, they also have to pay someone to do all the legwork to get them. So you're not just talking about the fees for the licenses, you're talking about some pretty intense labor as well to get the licenses.
Yeah, a lot of legwork on the part of the music supervisors, music coordinators, people trying to get all the pieces together.
Yeah. I mean, and music supervisors are generally, there's a certain budget where we start to see them. When on the real low budget, you probably get your own songs. You have a composer to do as much as they can, and that's smart. It's a good way to save money. But the music supervisors are really great for having these contacts with the labels, having contacts with artists that are not yet there, but they're up and coming, so you can get them before they're too big. And maybe by the time your film is released, you have this hot act contributing to your film.
Yeah, and a lot of times that hot act can obviously add a lot to your film.
Yeah,
Their fan
absolutely.
base becomes yours.
Right. How about that? Extra fans.
Mhm.
If a song is sang on screen by one of the characters, you need to get those rights and clearances ahead of time, or else they have you up against a wall.
Yeah, it's the same rules that would apply whether the song is inserted in during post or whether it's sung during the production. You still need a sync license,
Right,
the rights from the composition to perform that song.
right. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with us. This is a real treat for everybody. Thank you. Daniel Sirkin from Sirkin Law.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's great being here, and I hope to come back again soon.
I hope so. Thank you for watching Film Music Mentor.